A couple years ago, I covered Shadowgate right here on this channel, a MacVenture point-and-click title that originally existed on the Apple Macintosh and was ported to the NES, along with its MacVenture brethren, Deja Vu and Uninvited. Today's video will feature its brand new sequel, Beyond Shadowgate. Dave Marsh, one of the original creators of Shadowgate, and the producer of the sequel, reached out with a review code so I could get my grimy NESfriend mitts on a game releasing in 2024, a departure from my usual late 80s and early 90s fare. Beyond Shadowgate's Kickstarter campaign garnered almost 2,000 backers who pushed the project well beyond its $25,000 goal to just north of a whopping $120K. And in light of that, the project hit a ton of stretch goals, some of which I'll cover here shortly. And this wasn't just a Kickstarter campaign initiated by some nostalgia game developer who got the rights to the series. Note, this one involves the original co-creators of Shadowgate, Dave Marsh and Carl Roelofs. Their current outfit, known as Zojoy, a company name Dave says spun out of a random name generator, combined forces with Graph Metal Games, Christian Mosley, and a handful of other passionate developers to revive the series. You might be thinking, but wait, Beyond Shadowgate already exists! I have it on my TurboGrafx CD. I'm staring at it right now. And technically, yeah, you're correct. But that version, well, 1, didn't sell well due to the system it was on, and 2, didn't really capture the essence of what Dave Marsh and Carl Roelofs wanted to do. It was in third person, the art style is odd, and well, you can consider this kickstarted version in 2024 as the real Beyond Shadowgate. Forget the old one that you have. Well, yeah, if you can. Now, you might recall, back in 2014, we got the Shadowgate remake, which replaced the old-school art style with a fresh coat of modern paint while retaining much of the try-and-die mechanics and added a darker tone to the game's ambiance with the ability to create, legit shadows. Zojoy and the gang could have gone that route again here, but instead smartly opted to make Beyond Shadowgate a legitimate sequel to that original MacVenture game in every way, from the writing and tone, to the mechanics, to the art style. And when they say Beyond Shadowgate, they really mean beyond. This thing boasts a mountain of upgrades over its predecessor. Its map is quadrupled the size, there are nearly 3 times as many items and puzzles, and so many more ways to die. Aside from being simply more Shadowgate, Beyond Shadowgate breaks from the original by having the ability to quick travel. It has a day and night cycle, and multiple endings. It's not big for the sake of being big either. This is a world now. It feels fleshed out with plenty of NPCs to interact with, who have their own stories and who have their own mysteries. The world in Beyond Shadowgate feels alive in a real way, where Shadowgate, in hindsight, feels like it only comes to life when you're there looking at it. Beyond Shadowgate has more life to it in general. So there, Beyond Shadowgate has more life and more death than the first. Now, you won't be playing Beyond Shadowgate on your NES anytime soon, which I assume makes you question why I would feature such a game here on this channel, but Beyond Shadowgate is so directly inspired by the NES port of Shadowgate, I couldn't possibly ignore a chance to review it. I have a low awareness for the release of new games, even ones that spark my nostalgia like this one, so I was regretfully unaware of this Kickstarter campaign until it was too late, but backers for this thing are getting some real treats, including the soundtrack by Ori Falconer, a cloth map, a collector's NES cartridge, one that glows in the friggin' dark because why not, a collector coin, even a t-shirt. I'm not even sure why I'm telling you all of this outside of just wanting others to share in my FOMO. But for the NES folks out there, like I said, if you are a backer to the project, you can get a collectible NES cart to slap on your shelf. Now, if you're just looking to play the game and save shelf space, then you don't need to worry about it. Beyond Shadowgate is currently digital only, and you can get it on Steam right now. But if you're a shelf sicko like me and like the trophies of your kills to surround you at all times, then you're glad you backed the project. I unfortunately did not, so I have to fawn over it with regret, but I just wanted to show the affinity Zojoy has for that NES port and what it did to bolster the series, and making Shadowgate and the other MacVenture ports that came to the NES a source of nostalgia strong enough for Beyond Shadowgate to even be possible. Alright, so let's talk about the game. Now, if you played Shadowgate, the mechanics remain the same. Use the menu in the lower half of the screen to direct your character, a lowly Finling named Dale Thornborough, through the world one screen at a time. You interact with the world by either looking at or inspecting objects, using them or combining them with the other items in your inventory, opening and closing doors, moving through the world, and taking or stealing stuff. Most of this remains unchanged from the original, although the order the options are presented differ from the NES version. The actions are mostly the same. And I have some good news too. In the first Shadowgate, your survival hinged on having a lit torch handy at all times. The game basically became torch hoarder, as you had to have several at the ready so you could ensure your survival and ward away that pesky, darkness-loving Grim Reaper. Here in Beyond Shadowgate, you don't need torches, at least not that I can tell through what I played. There is no constant nagging clock ticking away for needing to always be finding or lighting a new torch. Early in the game, you can see some torches on the wall. I instinctively went to grab one, but they won't even let you take it. Where Shadowgate could feel linear at times, with the occasional fork in the path for you to explore, Beyond Shadowgate really opens up, especially when you escape the confines of the jail cell where the game starts. And just like Shadowgate, threats loom immediately here and beyond. Ruthless jailers, giant axe-wielding minotaurs, and cave monsters force you to make quick decisions to save yourself. And thankfully, the punishment for death is light, which is what makes these games so fun to experiment in. If you die, you get sent back to the previous room to try again. You're not having to repeat any long gaming sessions just because instead of making a slingshot weapon to defend yourself against an attacking monster, you instead tried to hand the monster a coin you found on the ground and he killed you anyway, despite your kindness. You live, you learn. The art in Beyond Shadowgate is amazing. Shadowgate's art on the NES was pretty good for its time, and going back to it, you can see its age, but it's not off-putting by today's standards, at least not to my little 8-bit eyes. Beyond Shadowgate's art style, thanks to Graph Metal Games, very appropriately and, to me, perfectly recaptures that 8-bit NES essence of Kemco's port, while also managing to look refreshingly shiny and new for my modern graphical sensibilities. I don't have a refined enough diction to really articulate more of what I'm trying to say, but art real good. Sound good too! In a game like this, where most of the information being fed to you comes by way of still images of your environment and reading the story and descriptions as you go, it naturally leaves a lot to your imagination, which the MacVenture games are always great at doing. Here and Beyond, the sound design does a lot of heavy lifting, and can now do so without the limitations of an 8-bit sound chip. The sounds help immerse you further, like the bangs on the cell doors when a guard is coming to murder you just adds to the overwhelming panic the player experiences. Some of these encounters are time-based too, so it's important to find the solution for protecting yourself quickly or else die, and the sound plays a big role in that anxiety build. In the modern age of constant remakes, ports, refurbishes, remasters, and odd choices for nostalgia cash-ins, I can confidently say that Beyond Shadowgate is legitimate and a worthy sequel. Dave Marsh had the plans for this sequel stashed away inside a securely locked sacred vault deep down in his basement crypt guarded by the very demons and monsters he put in the game. And he kept those plans for over 30 years before another young developer, Christian Mosley, approached him and said, "Yo, we should see what's on the other side of that Shadowgate." And thanks to this Kickstarter, the rest is history. I paraphrase some of that, of course, and embellish the rest, but if you're curious about how I could possibly know so much about Dave Marsh's history with Shadowgate and how Beyond Shadowgate came to be, look no further than this interview SNESdrunk and I did with him for our podcast, DrunkFriend. Alright, I think that's going to do it for Beyond Shadowgate, out now on Steam. As always, inspect all the corpses you come across, in games or in real life, and thanks for watching.